So the goal of this stream is to demystify the Octatrack a bit because, for fuck's sake, the first half day that I had this thing, I thought I was going to hate it forever, and that's not true at all. I actually love it, and that started with our friend. Actually, it started with our friend EasyBot, who's in the chat. He is a wonderful, amazing musician. He has a great Discord that you should all go do that and support him as well. He is an amazing Octatrack person. He works at, and like modular person as well. He works at Patchworks. He had me over to show me the ropes because I've had this for about 2 or 3 months. An extremely awesome person hooked me up with this. And I just kind of was like, I'm scared. I don't want to do it. And I kept on avoiding it. And then finally EasyBot was like, I will give you a lesson. And I was like, well, why don't we do the lesson at Patchworks? And we can do it a video and you can show off your knowledge and I will learn something. And that's what we did. I retained about 1/8. That's an Octatrack joke of what EasyBot showed me at Patchworks. But I started to see the possibility. And then I came home and I opened up the manual and I started going through it from start to finish. But I got really frustrated because it's just really dry and basically goes, step by step defining everything in it. But then somebody, I think on EasyBot's Discord, was like, hey, there are tutorials in the back. This shit back here, there's tutorials basically that walk you through each one of the things that this can do. And these are incredible. I think that, if you're anywhere familiar with how Elektron works, or maybe even not, this is the place you want to start because this will explain step by step how to do the kind of things that the Octatrack can do. So really, really, really recommend that you just spend some time with the tutorial section and learn it. And that will start whetting your appetite. And then as you start to explore more, you'll find things that you want to figure out how to do. Like, for instance, the really cool arm all feature, which I didn't know existed, and also some of the things about the way trigs work. You have to remember that this is one of the first Elektron boxes that existed. They had the SID station, and then the mono machine, and then I think this was their third device. So when I got it, or whenever I looked at it, I was like, well, so that's the digitakt, but it has slicing. That's what I thought, and you can play with this thing, but it's a lot more than that, and it's good that it's a lot more than that because it can fit into so many situations. So we have the tutorial section in here, and then there's this thing called the Merlin guide, which is basically this person kind of rambling about some of the stuff that they encountered when learning the Octatrack, and it's useful. It points out a few little bits and bobs here and there in a more human kind of way, in a less Elektron kind of way. So recommend this as well. It's pretty cool. It's called a performance sampler, and if you know the digitakt and you know the digitone, you have a taste of the Elektron sequencer, and you might be thinking, okay, well, 8 tracks. There's 8 tracks on the digitakt. I know it can play back samples, so it's a sampler. Yeah, it sure is. But it samples in a way that allows you to mangle anything coming into it, both sort of as it happens, but then also immediately resample it and have it do things. And that's really, really cool. So what we're going to do is going to start a brand new project. I'm going to go into project. I'm going to go to change. I'm going to create empty project. And it's going to allow me to do this. So I'll say stream project. So I just made a new project. Nothing's going to happen. In fact, and you can kind of see my digitone and digitakt up here. Nothing's even going to play up here. And that's because we have to do a little bit of setup. So I'm going to go into the MIDI menu. There's some underprint on almost everything here. And that means you press the function key to get into it. So function MIDI, I'm going to turn on first send transport and send clock. So now when I hit play on here, we will see the LEDs here move. Look at that. So now these two are synced to our Octatrack, which means I could use them as things to play, meaning that I could create sequences on these and they would come into here. Or we can sample from them in sync, which is dope. So there's a few more things I want to do. We have 8 tracks here. The thing about the Octatrack is that none of these tracks are set in stone in terms of what they do. And I think that's one of the really confusing things about it. Second only to the way that Octatrack or that Elektron calls the individual things that you can assign to this. There are multiple sources, multiple machines, as they call them. One of the things that I found out that was really, really fun is to make track 8 here what's called a master track. So that basically everything here passes through track 8. And there's a lot you can do with that. So we're going to set that up real quick. I'm going to go into project. I'm going to go into, is it control, audio, and then I'm going to change track 8 from normal to master. So now everything that we have, tracks 1 through 4, 5, 6, 7, are going to run into track 8, which means we can assign effects to this. We lose some of the options in terms of like, audio editing and shit like that, but we do get the 3 LFOs and 2 effect engines, which is really, really cool. So the next thing that we want to do is create some form of sound passing through or sound making thing. And we have a couple options there. I can set up what's called a through machine. And let's do that first, just to show what that's like. I'm going to go to track 6 and I'm going to go into source. I'm going to press source twice. Now I'm being asked, what I should assign to this track. And I hit the little back arrow. And here's our list of things that are available to us. We have what's called a static machine, a flex machine, a through machine, a neighbor machine, and a pickup machine. I'm not going to talk about pickup machines at all. I don't really quite understand how they work yet, but we will talk about everything else. And the reason I'm putting track 6, the reason I'm putting this track here into track 6 as opposed to track 7 is because I'm also going to talk about the neighbor machine, because that's very, very powerful as well. I'm going to set up what's called a through machine by going down to through and hit yes. So now track 6 can be set up to pass some of these inputs into it. So let's do that. Let's go into our little next page here. I hit no to go back to like the main sort of display of that particular machine. And what it says is in AB and in CD down here. And I have to choose from AB and CD how that input's going to work. So I'm going to turn this knob and it's just going to say CD, which means that I'm getting a stereo pair now from inputs CD, which is right here. So sorry. I forgot that this is on AB, not CD. I just had the wrong input. Now you can hear the digitone playing wonderfully. So let's go ahead and fix this sequence real quick. I'm going to turn on our metronome and we have to go set that up too. So I'm going to go back into project. I'm going to go into audio. Oh, no, it's down here at metronome. And I'm going to send this, right now it's going out to the queue. I'm going to send this here. There we go. Quantize that, which is in some dumb place. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and adjust this. Kill the click now. Okay, so we're hearing our digitakt, digitone. What we need to do now is experiment with what this through machine could do. So obviously it can pass through a signal. That's good. But we also get access to the effects right here, meaning that I can put effects on this incoming signal. So let's just go ahead and do that. Obviously there are effects in the digitone, but the whole point here is that we want to use the Octatrack as a sort of a source, a mangling source for our stuff. So let's go ahead and pick an effect. Our first effects bank, we can double click here and pick an effect. We have access to everything except for the reverbs and stuff. But that's why we have a neighbor track here. So let's go ahead, we'll use the filter as the first effect because it has a wonderful distortion. As Matt has pointed out to me. And you're right, Matt, it is super, super good. Okay, and then effects 2. What should we do with effects 2? We'll pick a different effect. Let's go ahead and make this like... Wait, is the plate... Okay, there we go. The point here being that I want you to really hear this effect. So I'm going to stop this real quick. We have access to 3 LFOs per channel, including the through track. So I've just put effects on what's coming from the digitone into here. And if I want to, on the through track, I can have these LFOs affect those effects. So basically, think of this as like, well, the way that my brain has been like working on an analogy to describe this is like a sequenceable chaos pad on like the best steroids, like the best horse drugs, like horse steroids. So let's go ahead and set up an LFO to do some fun stuff. One of my favorite LFO types in here is the random, especially when you use hold. So I'm going to change our trig type to hold. I'm going to change this to a random. I'll just go ahead and speed it up a bit. So what this is going to do is basically sample and hold on every trig. And yes, we do get access to trigs or steps in the context of our 3 tracks. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to go to this LFO and I'm going to pick a destination. Something like filter. Now we want plate mix. Cool. So nothing's going to happen until I add some trigs. Can you hear what's happening? The Octatrack is sequencing effects on a track that's coming from the digitone. So that's cool. And so anything that we do over here, obviously, will still be affected by this. And guess what? We can still go in here. I'm going to hold down some trigs. I'm going to hit the little micro timing button, and this opens up trig conditions. So what I can do now is use the level control to make these trig locks, which are having our LFO do shit. I can make them conditional. I'll go ahead and just copy this one. So that means that we can create conditional effect trig locks. And therefore, have a constantly evolving... Let me turn that distortion down. Wow, that is very distorted. Constantly evolving effect thing going on. Which, sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. We have one more LFO. Let's go ahead and set this LFO up to do a non-sample and hold on our filter depth so we can get a little bit more of our stuff coming out. Okay, cool. Are you guys with me so far? I know this is a lot of words, and we're still, sort of deep in the nomenclature of Elektron in order to describe this stuff. But basically what we've done is we've told the Octatrack through using a through machine on a track to pass the input from the Elektron digitone in. The Elektron digitone is making a sound. This is listening to that, and we have sequenced LFO, we have sequenced effects basically onto the incoming thing. Okay, so I'm going to move on to what's called a neighbor machine. And you'll notice, by the way, that we are not approaching this first as a digitakt on steroids. In fact, I think Matt agrees with me, that the power here is in this mangling of incoming audio. Okay, we've talked about the limitations of the effect engine here, in that we can only have a reverb on FX2. So we're going to set up track 7 here as what's called a neighbor machine. And that means that track 6 is going to pass through into track 7. And that means that we get all of those LFOs again. And we get all of those effects engines again. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to double click on source. It's going to ask me what I want this machine to be. And I'm going to choose a neighbor. Won't you be my neighbor? All right, let's add some effects to track 7 here. I know that on FX2, I'm going to add a delay because we have all those little blank spaces right now, and I'd like to fill those up with some delay. Those blank spaces. So. Now you can hear a delay. Cool. So, digitone into track 6 as a through machine, passing through to 7 as a neighbor machine, so we can add that delay. And we will do more with this in a bit. Track 8 is our master track, remember? Let's go ahead and set this up to make our signal a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to FX1 and add a compressor. And then remember, track 8 is our master, so everything that is happening here is going to pass through track 8. RMS? Yeah, sure. Let's do that. So threshold down, ratio up, gain up. Let's talk about sampling. So there's a lot of ways to deal with samples in the Octatrack. And let's go ahead and just do the simplest one, which is setting up a sample to play back, okay? So track 5, I'm going to set up to play a little drum loop back, all right? I'm going to go into source again. Remember, double tapping source is going to allow us to assign a machine to this track. So source, I'm back at this menu. I use Flex for almost everything. I haven't used a static machine at all. I'm going to hit the arrow. That's going to bring me to my source setup. We have 8 recording buffers. We will talk about those real soon. And then we have this list of numbers that do not have anything on them right now. I'm going to go back up to 1. Now this is where I can load a sample. I'll hit yes, and I am brought to my sample pool, my whole thing. So I can hit function yes. So preview. We just use that first one there. So now it's in my list, and I can trigger it. One, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I put this right here, it should just play. There is time stretching in here, so it wants to time stretch, right? If I go into our audio editor, I can edit this sample to be longer or shorter. And some of the samples that I have in here, like drum loops, they have like an extra downbeat at the end. So I just go in there using the audio editor and edit it, which is really, really cool. But let's talk about slicing, because that's one of the really, really cool things that this does. So right now we have no slices, just playing it back. You can see the sample being played back right here. So that's great, right? Nice to have that little thing. I can trim it here, like I said. I can slice. I can do some editing and some attributes and stuff like that, including basically telling the Octatrack what the tempo is, all kinds of shit. And that's saved with the sample, which is really, really cool. We're not going to go into that. We're going to slice. So I'm going to hit function AED, which the underprint says slice grid. And this will allow me to slice this sample in a variety of amounts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So this is a 32-step thing. So let's go ahead and make 16th notes out of this. I'm going to hit 32. It's going to ask me if I want to align my markers to 0 crossings. A 0 crossing is when a sample, a waveform, actually passes 0, meaning there's no amplitude for it, which will avoid clicks. In this case, I'm going to hit no, though. And you'll notice that nothing happened. You'll hear that. That's because we're in slice mode now. So it's expecting to play back slices. That means that I need to go give it some trigs. Oh, wow. Look at that. What a bass drum. Amazing. So it's playing back the first slice. We need to tell it to move through those slices. And there's some ways that we can do that. Well, actually, there's a variety of ways we can do that. If we hit, I believe, yes, when we're in the slice thing here, we have some things we can choose. And down here, we have create linear locks and create random locks. Linear locks will move through, kind of like what the Erica Synth sample drum does. It will lock these samples here. But before I show you what that even means, let's go back to this page right here. This is our main page for like static and flex machines, where we have access to things like pitch, start, which would normally be the sample start. But when you slice, it becomes the, what do you call it? The sample slice. So watch what happens when I move this knob right here. Those be the slices. We're going to get into scenes much later, but here's one of the fun things you can do with this thing right here. If I hold down B and change this to the last slice, I can now move through the slices with that, which is really, really fun. Okay, so we want to make this play forward in slice. So let's go back into our slice grid. Let's hit yes again. And, oh, excuse me. Let's hit, where was it? Is it up? Oh no, I forgot. Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to go down to create linear locks. So we've determined that the start thing is the start parameter, once we've sliced, is our slice point, is our actual slice in that index. So by creating linear locks, we will tell the Octatrack to linearly move through the slices on each step. And since we put 32 trigs down, and we know that we sliced to 32, this will recreate the drum beat with individual slices. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, alter those trigs. And there's our drum loop back. If we go into our source here and we look at one of these trigs, we will see that the start parameter is locked. And that's because we have, oh no, 11, so this would be 12. That's because we've told the Octatrack to linearly lock these. Now, that's great for a drum loop, right? But sometimes you might want to create a more random situation, and you can do that. So let's go ahead and undo all this, meaning just get rid of these trigs. I know there's a way to just clear locks, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Okay, so now we're back to this. Because remember that slice index was locked to the trigs. So we can go back into that slice grid and choose create random locks, but that parameter locks or trig locks the slice index to these things. And while that's kind of cool and you can do it on the fly, I like to use the LFO. So let's go to LFO real quick. And we're going to do the same thing that we did last time. When we use like the sample and hold shape or the random shape, and we set the trig to hold, and then make sure that we're on start. Every single time we get a trig, we'll get a new slice. Will linear locks get overwritten by your scene? Real good question, man. Let's find out. And yes, looks like it will override it, which is actually really, really, really cool. So if you have your samples sliced up, you can use the scenes to basically create a whole new part of it. So like if you had like a bunch of like sliced sections of a loop, you could use the scenes to like create a whole new little jam part by doing that, which would be really, really fun. Why would you want to slice up a sample instead of just letting the Octatrack play it back? What's the point in doing that? Well, now you've created 32 individual little pieces that can be manipulated by all of the amp and other effects that deal with that kind of thing. For instance, if I go into our amp, I can change the release of those slices. I couldn't do that really to a whole full drum loop, right? We also have access to these really cool re-trigger and retime effects, which are basically like repeats under a certain time. So let's go ahead and turn re-trigger up. That's really, really fun to do on all kinds of material, and I really, really like setting this re-trigger thing on melodic stuff. I uploaded a video to the socials yesterday where I was using a sine wave from our digitone here, and it sounded really, really good re-trigger. It's like instant glitchy stuff. So you get a little fine control over the individual slices. This was really, really nice. Let's talk about some of the parameters we have available to us on the front here. We have pitch and we have rate. Pitch is going to change the pitch without changing the timing, and this would be the case either with slices or with a full loop. So we have pitch. You can hear that our timing doesn't change. Rate is the playback rate. So this is going to slow it down until we get reverse. And guess what? That can be assigned to a scene. Neat, right? So Flex Machines, really, really powerful. They give us the opportunity to play back samples, but also slice them and dice them and affect them. I still have access to 3 LFOs and effects here. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of filter distortion on this. And let's bring our digitone back in a bit. Okay. So we've covered using a Flex machine to play back a sample. We've talked about through and Naver machines to bring stuff in. Let's talk about sampling from external sources and internal sources. So we have the digitone doing its thing. Why don't we go over to the let's get the digitakt in play here so we can mess with that. So we're fill up over here. Let's go to track 3, and we will set this to a through track again. Let's go to source and through. Now I'll get this right this time. This is on CD. Oh, that's right. I have to put a trig down. I forgot. Sorry. Now we can hear the 4 on the floor kick drum from our digitakt. Ooh, yeah, let's use noise. Why not? What's something that's going to be transformative that I can really show off? Well, actually, I don't want to be too transformative. Let's just add a compressor to this. So the digitakt is now coming through. And we'll just go ahead and make this really obvious. There's our digitakt coming through as a through machine. So we're going to set up the Octatrack to sample that. Let's do a little breakdown while we wait for everyone to come back. I'm back. Hi. You have 8 tracks that you can set up to do sampling, playback, effects, or just have stuff pass through it and be affected by the Octatrack. Think of it as a insane-ass mixer that happens to be able to sample. I think that's a really, really easy way to think about it, or a good way to think about it. It is totally something you can sit with samples from the compact flash card and make something with, but it really shines as something that accepts stuff coming into it and then mangles it. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to mangle this. Well, we're going to sample it first. Yeah, Jason's right. You can absolutely grow with this. Like it feels like Modular to me, in that the possibilities of what I can do with this are just staggering. Like I want to set up a machine basically that, like, I want to set up a project that basically just samples ambient music from YouTube and turns it into music. I can just like walk away from this and it will do it for me. It's that crazy. Every single one of these tracks, even though we have assigned stuff to it, has a recording buffer assigned to it as well. The record buffers can be set to record from a variety of places. So for instance, track 3 has a record buffer track that is record buffer 3 assigned to it internally. And we can see those if we go into source where we've been assigning stuff. Actually, let's go to track 1. So track 1, which we don't have anything assigned to yet. If I set this to flex, which was, again, our playback device, remember, and then go into the like pick a thing section, pick a sound. The first stuff that you have access to are these recording buffers, 1 through 8. It says record 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, remember, we have the digitakt coming in on track 3. I can assign track 1 from buffer 3. I need to do a little bit more setup in order to make that work. So I'm going to come back out, and we're going to go into our recording setup, which is this 3 buttons up here. I have to set that up on track 3. So track 3 is the buffer that we want to pull from. So I'm going to hit function record. It says recording 3 setup. Remember that we assigned track 1 to recording 3. I know it's confusing, but bear with me. Here we have our ins, we have a length of recording, and we have some other options. So what I'm going to do is set this up to record from CD, which is this, remember, inputs CD, input AB, input CD. So those are our 4 inputs. I'm going to make sure that we're not recording internally, which is this one right here. I'm going to turn this thing called trig to 1, 2, which I'm not going to explain right now. It's a way that we can set this up to trigger record, and that's what I will show you. And then I'm going to go to the length, and I'm going to set this to 32 steps. which means that the Octatrack is now primed or set up to record 32 steps when I tell it to from the thing plugged into CD. And remember, all this is synced. All this is ready to go. All this is just like ready to go. So I'm going to make this really, 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 really obvious. I'm going to go to track 1 and I'm going to turn the pitch up all the way and I'm going to reverse it. And now what we're going to go do is go back to track 3, go back into the recording menu. And now I have a variety of ways I can tell the digitakt to record. But the best way, the coolest way, is when you are in this setup, in the recording setup, you can put down a trigger that will tell the machine to record. In order to make this to work right now, I'm going to shorten my record length to 16 because I need to be able to populate the buffer and then have it play back. So let's hit play. Now, if I set this up right, oh, wait, nope, I haven't set it up right yet. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a trig on track 1 so it'll play back. Now, whatever is recorded into track 3 will play back on track 1 with the settings that we've put there. So let's go back to track 3 where our recording buffer exists. Let's go ahead and go back into this menu and let's put a trig down. All right. If I did this right, what's going to happen now is when I hit play, we're going to see this start to record. When it's done recording, we will hear it play back on track 1. And there it is. Remember how we set track 1 to reverse and pitch up? That's what we're hearing. So I can go to track 1. I have that sample that we recorded from here. So, what does this mean? It means that in real time, I can tell the Octatrack to record from any source and immediately send that recording to another track to be mangled in a new way. And I know that's confusing, but think of it as like there are these little pipes in the Octatrack that can accept information, and you can send that information to other tracks and then affect them. And so that information is live sound, and some of that information is recorded sound. So the really, really cool thing about this is that if I go back into the track that has my my recording buffer on it, meaning the track 3, which is accepting the signal from the digitakt via a through machine, I can actually go back into this menu, and remember we put a trig down to record? Well, there's something called a one-shot trig. And what that means is if I hit function and do this, and hit play, it will record, but you'll see that the little record buffer stopped and we started to hear track 1. Let me go ahead and turn down the compressor on our master track here. So, with those one-shot trigs on, it will record once and then stop recording. Unless, well, no, that's it. It'll record once and then stop recording according to the parameters that I set up. There's a really, really dope thing you can do now, where if I hold down function and hit yes, it's going to resample, it's going to like basically rearm that trig and record again. So let's go ahead and save this over here. And I'm going to do a crazy thing. So I just affected what the Octatrack, I just affected what the digitakt is doing. You can now hear the digitakt is like all kind of pitched up and weird. So I'm going to arm the record trig down here. And what we're going to hear is the Octatrack will sample it when we come around to that step. Here we go. Let's make it even more obvious. So that terrible sound is track 1 having just sampled what was coming in. And then we can affect it. So let's TLDR again. Each one of these tracks has a record buffer associated with it, recording 1 through 8. You can set any other track on the Octatrack to listen to that record buffer, sample it, and then start doing stuff to it. So right now we just have this track playing back the recording, but we can actually do like slicing and stuff like that to it. So let's go ahead and clear our record buffer so we don't have that terrible sound. I'm going to go to track 3, and I'm going to go back into my record thing, function record, and I'm going to hit function clear. And this will clear the contents of this recording. All the stuff that we're doing, this buffer recording, is temporary. So if you want to save something that you've recorded, you do have to go through an extra step, and I believe that's in the audio editor. So if we hit play right now, we'll just hear the thing that we set up on the digitakt to play. Okay, cool. So let's go do some more setup. Let's go to track 1, and let's go ahead and turn this into something that will play back like slices and be weird. Okay, so I'm going to leave the pitch and rate alone. I am going to. I don't know if I need a record. I don't know if I need a sample in there, but let's go ahead and set up our trigs to do this for us. So I'm going to set up one trig here. And I'm going to go into our conditional thing again, and I'm going to set the level to about 50%, 75%. I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste this now conditional trig to every step here. Wonderful. We're not going to hear anything, obviously, except for our original digitakt sound. Okay, so if I was to hit that shortcut again to arm that little record trig that we had here, we can hear that now we have that same thing that happened when earlier we had setup slices over here, and that we didn't like set locks. So if I were to go into our audio editor, there's the sample that we just played with. I'm going to hit slice grid, so function AED, and I'm going to set this to 32 slices. All right, now we have slices of the recording buffer that we just created. Let's go ahead and confirm by going into our source and playing with that. Right? So there's that same start point, which is the slice index, right? So again, we could do this with this. And move through the slices. But what's more fun is to have the LFO do it for us. So let's go ahead and set up that step-locked LFO, which means that every trig is going to tell the LFO to pick a new slice. Do, do, do. Do, do, do. All right, so now we are using an LFO to resequence the record buffer that we grabbed from the digitakt. Let's go ahead and make this weirder. Let's go ahead and put an LFO on our retrig time. Same deal. I'm going to use that random LFO. Multiply by, doesn't really matter, depth all the way up. And then we will change this to retrig time and hold. There we go. Getting kind of square pushery, I guess. And let's go ahead and set an effect on this. Cool. Amazing, right? Let's go ahead and do that step-locked reverb. I really liked that. Actually, you know, we're going to use the LFO. I like this trick a lot, too, when you have these crazy-ass slices. I like to set a step-locked LFO to release. We'll see why in just a second. Yeah. So now we get little micro slices that just sound cool. We can give this some reverb. Okay, now remember, The sample that's on here isn't a sample that really exists anywhere except for in the concept of the record buffer. So anything I do here will be resampled into that. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and mess this up using Control-Alt. You can hear now the sample that we just had playing, or excuse me, the sequence that we just had playing on the digitakt has now been resampled by track 1, which we put all that work into. Let's go ahead and turn up our, oh, actually, I guess that's a fine volume. Does that make sense? Please tell me if that makes sense. So I want you to imagine what you could do with this in a live setting. We're going really, really extreme with it, but imagine being able to have like your modular system and like a drum machine plugged into this, and you can sample what's going on in time and have it immediately fucked with. And then we can play with scenes. We have too many effects going on. Let's go ahead and turn our LFOs down that we are doing all the fun stuff with over here on our digitone. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So now we have the digitone playing. You can hear the little chord system that we have. Let's go ahead and get that a little bumped up. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing that we did to the digitakt signal to the digitone, just to drive it home a little bit more. So remember, every single one of these tracks has a record buffer associated with it. Here's track 6. We'll set up track 2 to record from, where is our through machine? Track 6. Okay, so track 2, source. Remember, we have to set up a machine. Flex, that is our playback stuff, but can also used to slice. So let's go ahead and turn slice on, loop off. And then we will go to function record and go to track 6, which is our recording buffer. Now, we have the digitone coming in on AB. So we want AB. We do not want any internal. Let's change our length to 32 and trigger again to 1, 2. Okay, we will set up a little one-time trig here. Boop. Okay. Cool. We now have a recording of the digitone in our recording 6 buffer. And on 2 here, we have the source set for this to record 6. So now this will have the buffer associated with it. So if we put a trig down right here, I'll turn this down. We should hear what we just recorded. How do I know that that's what I recorded? Because I can fuck with it. So I'm going to make a new rhythm. So now we should just hear the beginning of that, right? Because we haven't done any slicing or anything. So let's go into here. Let's go into our slice grid again, function AED. Hey, look, there is our sequence. Let's give this 16 slices instead of 32. Align markers to 0 crossing. Now, because this is sustained material, I do actually want to align the markers to 0 crossing because I don't want any clippity clips and timing doesn't really matter. I just kind of want the chord information. So I'm going to hit yes. There are some slices. Let's go into our LFO and set up again that cool steppy lock thing. You're going to see me use this all the time. So there we go. There we go. Depth all the way up. I'll set this to hold. Set this to start. Now, when I hit play, we should hear random slices being picked. Isn't that cool? Arm. So I just fucked with these, armed my triggers, and then set them back, which I think is cool. I am getting extremely hungry, so we're going to go over one more thing, and then I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to answer some questions first, but because, again, we've gone over a lot. But let's go ahead and talk about scenes. So we have this crossfader here. I've shown you a little bit of what you can do with it. But anyone that's used an Elektron device knows that we have the power to trig lock things, right? We have the power to go in and affect any trig with a bunch of parameters at once. We can lock samples to it. We can lock effects to it. We can do all kinds of fucking really awesome stuff. The scenes is that, but we're able to crossfade between them and we get a whole bunch of them. So let's set up a few really, really simple concepts for these scenes so I can whet your appetite as to how this might be useful to you in performance or in the bedroom. I don't know. So track one, what can we do to this? Let's go ahead and step by step these tracks. So what can we do to this? Well, let's go. Again, we're going to hold down our scene. And we're going to just mess with some stuff. I don't want the start point. I'm actually going to clear this scene. So function, clear scene. There we go. Now we've got a blank scene. We can just mess with the whole thing. So now we're not going to hear this unless we move the crossfader over. I'm just going to mess with a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm messing with the retrig. I'm turning up the release. Let's go to our LFOs, turn down our LFOs. And let's go into this and turn the time up. So this now goes from this to this. I know, doesn't sound really great, does it? That. And then we'll send to our delay and turn the feedback up. Track 3 is our digitakt through. So now our through machine that is sending our digitakt signal is being manipulated by a filter. Track 4 is not doing anything. Track 5 is our drum loop. Track 6 is a through machine. Let's mess with that. Okay, so we set up that one scene, right? Well, let's do it a little simpler but more transformative thing. Let's go to scene B. I'm going to hold down scene, go to 10. This is not going to sound like anything different. Right? But for this scene, let's go to our main channel here, our master channel, and we'll just go ahead and go to actually, let's go to this. This is our neighbor machine for the digitone. So we can set up the Q bass there. Let's go to our master channel. And what do we have on this? On effects 2, we can add, let's see, let's add a comb filter to our entire mix because we're crazy. So you can add something basically to your entire mix with a scene, which is really, 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 really cool. Switch back to this scene, and I can switch back to it in terms of this. And guess what? You get all those cool in-between points too. I have shown you through the course of this video, we can take inputs from outside the Octatrack. We can have the Octatrack play them. We can put effects on those. We can sequence those effects. We can have a master channel that everything runs through that can have its own effects. We can have tracks next to tracks called neighbor tracks that have another series of effects on them. So 4 effect blocks per track. I mean, you could do 1 track and have all these as be neighbor tracks if you wanted to be just insane. And that could be a really fun exercise. We have different machines. So we talked about the through machine. We have the flex machine and static machine, which are our playback devices. But they can pull either from a sample pool, which we pull that drum loop from, or from record buffers, which are created live from various points in here. There's a record buffer associated with all 8 of these tracks. You can have tracks that aren't the number of that record buffer, listen to that record buffer, and then you can mess with those with slicing and stuff like that. And you can arm the Octatrack at any point to go crazy and record new stuff. Is the Octatrack confusing? A little bit. Is it amazing? Yes. Should you get one? I say if you are looking at the Elektron ecosystem and you like to work with samples, then the Octatrack wouldn't be the first thing I would suggest necessarily. You have to really, really, really want to do the other stuff that it does, the resampling, all that kind of stuff. Now, as the hub of a live setup, meaning like if I take this over to my modular rig right now, plug the deluge into one input and everything coming out of my modular rig into another input, and have through machines and resample stuff and be able to do this 2 things, I think that is astounding. And I cannot believe that this device is so old and I did not know that it did that. And I think that concludes our stream. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. Anyways, goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful Friday. I love you. You're wonderful, except for you people that keep on talking about the freeze delay without explaining it. Have a great day. This will be available to you as an archive. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Boy.